Hey everyone, let's rock and roll. Oh wait, how about some gross music? Wow, it went silence. Now, here's a controversial idea I want to explore. Is it possible that the rise of the digital literacy help countries preserve and share their cultural legacy? Although some say no. Based on the reaction, the answer seems to be a clear yes. Imagine if Creole music were as accessible as rock and roll through digital platforms. More people could appreciate and enjoy it, just like they do with the globally dominant Western culture and music. Now, let's move to the deeper issue. The digital divide is not just about access to technology. It also deepens the imbalance in soft power between global North and global South, or what historian Nicky Ferguson calls the West and the rest. Ferguson argues that the increase in Western civilization in certain global norms contributes to the domination of Western culture worldwide, which the digital divide reflects a similar dynamic, as the global North continues to control much of the digital platforms and infrastructures, further reinforcing its culture and technological dominance. So now, let's start by looking at the domination of the US central value perpetuated through the creation and dissemination of content on online platforms. How many of you have been using digital platforms for at least 5 years? Wow, that's a lot of hands. I'm sure many of you have even mastered social media features like YouTube and Facebook. Well, the report of the International Telecommunication Union in 2023 revealed that the digital connectivity in the West was 2.5 times higher than that in developing countries. So, what demonstrates here is that the greater potential of the West to export its culture globally. Take Instagram and TikTok for example. They promote Western beauty standards through filters and trends, emphasizing small waists and big hips. Famous researchers Tickerman and Enneberg have warned that social media is highly likely to distort reality through heavily edited photos. However, this kind of video production combined with audiences' low awareness of this curated reality have amplified the dominance of Western culture. In contrast, the global South often remains a passive consumer of content rather than an active creator. Can you see the base here? Well, it's actually linked to the lower levels of digital literacy in Global South that have resulted in the marginalization of indigenous communities in the Western eyes. For example, the beauty standards of lip plaits of Mercy people in the Ethiopia and stretched earlobes are often framed as strange and primitive in the Western social media, which reinforce harmful stereotypes. What's the problem here? The UNESCO report highlights that low digital literacy in the global south limits the indigenous community's ability to defend themselves on these platforms. The lack of representation makes it harder for these communities to influence global norms, accelerating the marginalization and disappearance of the cultural practices. In other words, it deepens the cultural gap between the global north and south, as well as contributing to homogenization of global culture. Building on the dominance of the US central value discussed earlier, let's now examine how digital connectivity and resources availability further shape the reach and the perception of the cultures. Take Disney Pocahontas for example, a romantic love story between a white colonist and a Native American girl that promotes themes of love and peace. However, the reality is much darker. According to the unwooed Little Bear Kosla and Angela Daniels Silver Star in the true story of Pocahontas, Pocahontas was actually a child when colonists arrived and was kidnapped and raped when she grew up. What we see here is that the film romanticizes colonization, whitewashing the violence and trauma faced by these indigenous people. This kind of storytelling does not only distort history for domestic, middle class white audiences, it also influences the global perceptions, particularly among the indigenous groups who often lack the tools or access to fact check such narratives. Especially in their first experiences with such media, they are easily buy into this kind of love story or theme, and eventually internalize the false realities, mistakenly believing that the values portrayed in such stories are universal. Over time, this contributes to the formation of a homogenized culture globally, where local traditions and identities are overshadowed by the dominant Western cultures and perspectives, widening the cultural gap between global North and South. So together, while we may not be able to have the power to influence the cultural exports, We need to stay critical, question these portrayals, and recognize these impacts so as to remain the rich cultural diversity. That's the key takeaways I want to leave with you today. If you're interested in learning more about the story of Pocahontas, I encourage you to check out the link provided here. Thank you.